Hi, I'm Jennifer. Welcome to my kitchen. I had a lot of hamburger in the freezer, and so recently I made an extra batch of meatballs with half hamburger and half sausage. And so I set them aside. Some of them I'm going to use for spaghetti sauce, but today I wanted to make stroganoff. Instead of using a big hunk of beef roast, I'm using meatballs instead. So this is a nice way to use what's on sale to make comfort food when it's chilly outside. So in my Dutch oven, I have 3 tablespoons of butter that's melting, and I have 3 generous tablespoons of flour. So I'm going to start with my whisk. The butter's melted. I've already cooked the noodles and put them out in a drainer to make it easier, but that way it's all one pan. So I cook the noodles in the same pan that I'm making my sauce in. So this is called making a roux. When I first started learning how to cook, I didn't know how to make gravy without having to use the processed foods, and it's really not hard at all. It's equal parts fat to flour. So for me, today I'm using butter. Sometimes I use bacon fat, it depends on my mood. But I just combine the two, and I'm whisking it around, letting it gently cook down to about like a light golden brown. I put the fan on. I apologize for the sound because it's going to make a big facial steam in a minute when I add my broth. A lot of the stroganoff recipes I've been finding are using canned soups, which is fine if that works for you, but for me, I like to try to cut out as much of the processed foods as possible. So I have here a quart of beef broth, and I also have a pint of mushrooms. I can both of them myself so I know what's in them, but I do not judge at all. You use what works for you. I've, of course, bought broth from the store before. The mushrooms, if I were buying store mushrooms, I would drain them and use them in the stroganoff. But since I made them myself, I know that the only thing that's in them is my cleaned mushrooms sliced with water. So it's actually mushroom broth. It's going to add some extra flavor. So I'm just kind of gently stirring this around. And as I'm doing that, I have here on the lid of my mushroom, because again, I tried not to make too many dishes, but this is just 3 cloves of garlic that I had roasted. What I do is I roast a whole bulb of garlic, and that's a separate thing, but I just take out what I need for a recipe. It has a milder flavor than raw garlic, which I like for almost everything. So it just mushes up like once it's defrosted, I just let it sit out for a little bit, and then it's soft enough to pull off a clove. I pluck it out and I smush it with a fork. It's got the consistency of like a mashed potato. And you can smell that. So cooking the flour and the butter mixture helps with the flavor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very slowly add this up and just kind of stand back a little bit with the steam. And then I continue to whisk. I don't know if you can see in there. And then I add a little more. And I continue to whisk. I don't want to dump it in all at once because I want to be able to incorporate the roux with no lumps, because that would make it weird. So 1 quart is about 4 cups of beef broth. I'm going to stir that and turn the temperature. But as I'm letting this thicken up again, I'm going to make sure that I have all of my ingredients in place before I've even begun. So that's really part that I learned the hard way, is if you try to think, oh, it's not going to take much to grab it on the way, it will save you peace of mind down the road. So while that's thickening up, I have here, this is just like a little bit of coffee extract, which is an unusual ingredient in this kind of thing, but I thought, as I'm going through my spice rack, I was like, I have coffee extract. I bet you that would give it a nice deep flavor. If you don't have coffee extract, you could use just straight coffee if you happen to have some in the fridge. But of course you can skip it as well, not a problem. I'm also gonna have some Dijon mustard set aside. I went out to my garden and I found a couple of green scallions. Basically what I do is when I buy them at the grocery store, I put them in a pot of dirt and just clip off what I need, a nice little snip. And I also, inside of there, just again to make things a little bit easier, I've already added my spices and kind of going through, I just look to see what calls to me. And today it happened to be parsley and a little thyme, a little cardamom, gives it that warm feeling too. I have about a half a cup of sour cream ready to go. I had some heavy cream in the fridge and I wanted to use it up, and I thought, hey, why not? And then of course I have my meatballs. Inside these meatballs is equal parts sausage. Breakfast sausage was on sale and I liked the flavor of it, so I have equal parts hamburger and sausage with chopped onions and eggs and breadcrumbs, you know, the usual. But if you make extra, then you just put them in the freezer and you can use it for different recipes. I like to make Italian wedding soup as well. That's always good. I'm just waiting for this to thicken up. So I've been stirring the gravy for a few minutes. Basically, it's, you know, doing a continuous, what's called a hard boil. So it's continuously boiling even after I stir it. And I know that as the gravy cools, it's going to thicken up even more. So I'm not worried that it's still a little thin. What I'm gonna do now is add a little Worcestershire sauce. Maybe a teaspoon or so. And a blob of Dijon. Oh man, I hate it when that happens. Another mess that shocks me. And let's see. I can add my mushrooms. Pint makes about 2 cups of mushrooms, maybe a little bit less, because and let's see, I'm going to heat the meatballs. There's probably, I don't know, less than a pound of meatballs in here. There we go. I'm going to bring it back up to a boil. Got a taste along the way. It's a good flavor. I might add a little more Worcestershire. This is about a half a cup of sour cream. And that's what basically, in my mind at least, changes it from Salisbury steak meatballs to the Stroganoff. what I could have done was temper the sour cream by putting a little bit of the broth into the sour cream and bringing it up to temperature before dumping it in. So it's a little lumpy, but I'll make it work. This will give them meatballs, because the meatballs I made ahead, so I defrosted them last night, and so I want to make sure that I bring them up to temperature before I add my cooked noodles. The green onions I won't add until the very last minute also. Now this will thicken up, especially the second day, so don't be scared if it looks like it's soupy, because the noodles will suck it right up. Each recipe I've looked at so far for the stroganoff included processed foods, and I was trying to find a way to do without that, so that's why I'm using my beef broth and the roux to make the gravy first. I have used canned soup in the past, but it's something that works better for me to cut out. So let that sit for a minute. Two thumbs up. Just a little sliver of butter to gloss the sauce. I'm going to add my noodles very carefully, because sometimes they come out in one big chunk and you don't want to splash yourself. I used egg noodles for this, just like a half a bag, which is like a half a pound. Oh yeah. I do have a tendency to make a lot of dishes, and there are no magic fairies in the background like you do on those cooking shows on TV that are going to magically make them disappear. So it's either me or my husband. And so on the side of trying to work smarter, not harder, I just cook the noodles in the Dutch oven, then I dump them and let them drain while I'm making the sauce, and then I bring them back again. So this is just 2 things of green onions. I washed them. I actually cut them with kitchen scissors. You can cut them with a knife, of course, but I find it easier. And then in the past, I've dumped my seasoning over the pan, but I find that the steam gets into the spice bottle and then it ends up caking and stuff. So I try to add all of it either by dumping it in my hand and then putting it in, or just putting it in a little prep bowl. But the noodles are already soaking up the pasta sauce. I chose not to use a white onion for it because there's already white onions in the meatballs. And that's it. Nice to serve it with some soft bread, butter, comfort food for a chilly day. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have a great night.